we are picking on a critical sector, the energy sector. Zambia is currently facing serious crisis around this area, the electricity and issues and the load shedding that is going on sometimes for days. And then we also have the other side of issues of fuel. We thought we could get a special guest who will speak to these matters. I have Dr. Johnstone Chikwanda. He's a Zambian national, based here in Lusaka. He sat on various boards and has been a director at Indeni Petroleum Refinery and Rural Electrification Authority. He's also sat at boards in South Africa and was a technical member of SASOL Oil, one of the giants, oil giant in South Africa. He's a leading expert on both electricity and the oil sector. Dr. Chikwanda, welcome to today's Conversation podcast.
Thank you very much, and good day to you, Ambassador, and also to our esteemed viewers and listeners. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast.
Thank you very much. I've been looking for you to come and speak to these various issues, but I think God's time is the best. You are here, and we're glad you are here.
Thank you very much. Yes, I was not able to have made it much earlier. As you know, things have been evolving very fast. We have had a very challenging year in the energy sector, and everyone has been on their tiptoes to try and do our part, and it has not been easy. So I've not been able to do a number of interviews. Some have lapsed, but I've been able to try and do my best.
Yes, we are glad you are here, and we thank God you are here. Many people have seen you and watched you on TV, or they've seen your speeches as you speak to conferences, or they've read your various write-ups that you do on the energy sector. But just let's briefly, who is Johnstone Chikwanda?
Very simple. Johnstone Chikwanda is my name, and I was born in Kapiri Mposhi, and my grandfather, when he fought in the World War II, and when he finished, instead of going to the village, which is Chinsali, he didn't go, because that's where on my mother's side, my grandfather, we're from Chinsali, and Chifu Nkula, Senior Chifu Nkula, actually. So he decided to settle in Kapiri. And so his children started following him there after retiring from the mines. And also my mother, joined in there. So I was born in Kapiri, did my primary school in Kapiri. And after that, I came to Kalonga Secondary School in Kabwe, where I was a prefect there. Got 6 points in 5 O-levels, came to the University of Zambia and did mechanical engineering. Entered the energy sector, then he left the country, continued with other my academic journey, did my master's and researching, of course, in the same industry which I'm passionate on, and then evolved into my PhD, which was on organizational leadership. Okay. Because my professor said, look, Africa's challenge, the way we see it, is a leadership challenge in different spheres, including at the sector level, at industry level, because industries are moved forward by industry leaders. So we need to see more of transformational leaders in Africa. We need to see more of authentic leaders, values-driven leaders, servant leaders.
Yes.
You can achieve that within the context of your passion, which is the energy sector.
Yes.
So the research actually still delved within the energy sector, within that perimeter. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's what I've been, and of course, all my work life has been in the energy sector, both here and...
I must confess, when I came as ambassador to South Africa, and I recognized that South Africa was our biggest trading partner, and there was state absence, Zambia-South Africa relations, I immediately ignited that. But what I knew is that the area that does the business is the private sector. And I remember asking the embassy to look out for very distinguished Zambians who were serving in very senior positions to form the Zambia South Africa Business Forum. And your name was among the top names. So just tell us about your journey in South Africa and how did you rise in a foreign country?
Yeah, there was one time that there was a drive for experts within the region, those with technical skills, and then we all rushed into South Africa, for green pastures to try and develop our careers. And I did also some lecturing there, but I was very, very fortunate to have found myself within the SASOL Group, which is a global giant, more than 40,000 employees. And I was in SASOL Technology, because SASOL is a group of companies, and one of them is SASOL Technology, where the brain power is situated, which come up with the technologies, which are later on commercialized by other subsidiaries. So that's how it is configured. SASOL Technology is a nerve center where different technologies, be it in explosives, be it in fertilizer, be it in polymers, be it in fuels, be it in whatever technology, whether it's gas to liquid, where you are commercializing gas to fuels, or commercializing coal to fuels. All that technology, that brain power sits within SASOL Technology. And that is where I was situated. And from there, I think I was given a region to look at, which was the Africa region, Sub-Saharan Africa, with a main focus on SADC, and then, of course, going even beyond that. And I remain indebted to what I went through, the kind of grooming, the kind of expertise with the centers of excellency which are there. And also, we started to see more engagements from the Zambian embassy, because initially it was virtually like a no-go area for many people, and there was like a detachment, and the Zambian community started to organize. I think I was also one of the leaders who served within the Zambian community there, organized, but we started noting a lot of doors being opened, and a dash into the communities to look for certain skills, to look for certain people that are able to contribute back home. And we noted that the groundwork had been laid, but also when you came, you took it to another level, which is something that no one can take away from you in terms of the role you participated to organize the various community. Today, the Zambian community in South Africa has got branches almost in every district, well represented, a diaspora fund in place, a welfare fund in place where funerals are funded, amongst own contributions, and it's been good. And the formation of the Zambia South Africa Chamber, which was configured to the Business Council, was a very, very good idea, because it brought the Zambians and the South Africans together to ensure that there is a nexus where we could be meeting, exchanging ideas, investment ideas, and that was a very brilliant idea. Yes. And it was such an honor for me to serve on the Business Council.
No, thank you for the ideas you brought, and it was taken so seriously. We would regularly host heads of state, and you people would speak at those forums. So thank you very much. Let's narrow down. Zambia has an energy crisis. I don't even know where to start, but let's start from the beginning. What is a state? Maybe we start with the electricity sector. I note that there was a cost of service study that was done, that has been there since 2020. And I think by 2022, government had responded to it. I think it summarized the issues that affect the electricity sector. Let's start from there.
The energy sector reforms in this country started a long time ago. Yeah. They started with the MMD government after, in the work of the liberalization, the opening up of the sector. Yeah. And that culminated into the promulgation of the Electricity Act of 1995, the Energy Regulation Board Act of 1995, the Petroleum Act, you know, and the Rural Electrification Act, you know. Yeah, and we moved on, and as we were moving on, it was always known that one of the biggest challenges that we are facing in the industry, the apex issue, was the issue of the tariff. Yeah. And that tariff was an apex challenge issue. If it was not sorted out, it was going to impede development, especially private sector investment entry into the sector. And of course, there are also other structural challenges in the market, the way the market was configured, which had a lot of red tape. And that culminated into a second wave of reforms. You know, they were ongoing, which culminated into the promulgation of the Electricity Act of 2019.
Okay.
So all that was trying to remove the rigidities, to open the bottlenecks, and at the same time, we had a consultant appointed with the help of, funded by the Africa Development Bank, to research in the way the tariffs are sitting between different clients and customer demographics, so on and so forth. I think the first was 2019, then I think the good job wasn't done, and then again it was re-advertised, because it was always a very contentious issue each time you want to talk about the tariffs.
It's a motive.
Yeah, so I think
our people are paying so much for electricity, and then they are told that actually what you pay is very little.
Yeah, that is unfortunately, it was never told to the people historically that we had been paying, it was being subsidized. Because each time you start a subsidy program, you have to tell the people. If you don't tell them, the day that you'll be trying to come out, it will be met with a lot of hostile reaction. So our consumers have never been told. Of course, now they know that the tariffs that they were paying were not cost reflective. But it's not just on the retail, but also on the commercial side, where you have a lot of vicious reaction sometimes if you want to do that. So the consultant from Europe was engaged, who did a thorough job, and there was engagements, and the cost of service study was released. And it revealed shocking patterns, actually, of what we were sitting with as a country. We noted that the electricity tariffs needed to go up by about at least 75% in order to bring them to cost reflective. But that consultant also was wise enough. He said, don't increase this at the same, within the one breath. Do it over a period of 5 years. You stagger them. That is what went in as a major recommendation, apart from other recommendations. And I think that he also went to cabinet, because now there was a change of government, and it was considered, and cabinet attached his comments and accepted some, then some were like kind of agreed in principle. And we started seeing Zesco take an application to ERB to seek for the first time in the history of the country a multi-year tariff application approval for 5 years. Which
what does that mean?
That meant that as a country, we wanted to introduce predictability in terms of how the tariff was going to be getting increased year in, year out. Because previously, where we are coming from, no one would know whether the tariff would be adjusted or it would not be adjusted. So if an investor wants to come, they just don't know what will happen to the tariff plan, because it was sitting with somebody who would do. You just don't know what will happen. You know? So we need to create transparency and predictability. So the tariff plan, which was taken to Energy Regulation Board, was very transparent, stating that in the year 2023, ERB, Zesco would want the tariff to be increased by so much in the year 2024, 2025, up to 2027.
For 5 years.
For 5 years. Very, very clear, so we know. And so last year, that tariff approval for last year was given. And also for this year, in April, it was given. So we have 3 more remaining. But for me...
So just there, Doc, you mean Zesco didn't envisage that there could be a need for emergency tariffs? Because one of the reasons the tariffs are going up on 1st November, and that has not been received well by our people, because we just had an increase in April. So the emergency tariff, is it justified?
No. First of all, when the electricity cost of service was presented and the recommendation, it was not foreseeable at that particular time that there would be a major crisis that would gut the country in the way we've been gutted. And even last year, because it was done, I think, at the beginning of the year, when that application for 5 years was presented, it was not known at that particular time that we'll have it. So that plan that was approved outside the expectations that there would be an emergency that will rise in the life of the country. So I think that one no one could have seen it, because that approval had been done previously. Yeah. But just to talk about the emergency itself, tariff application, which you said has been received with mixed feelings from people. The issue which I've noted under the new government, the way the structure of the tariff is being handled, has been to expand the customer categories. Because initially we had very narrow, we had I think about 3 under the retail, but they have been expanded to 6. And then last year, a number of them, customer categories, got actually discounts. Then I've noted a shift in the pattern where the burden is being shifted to people that are using more than 400 units, especially above 500 units. That's how the curve is moving. Even this particular emergency tariff, if you analyze it, which I've done, I've noted that everyone who uses up to 200 units, they have been given a discount. And this is where the majority of the customers actually are. There are 730,000 Zesco customers of the 1.3 million that use 200 units and less. This is where the most vulnerable of Zesco's customers are located. All of them have been ring-fenced. And then they got discounts, and then it's being shifted to people that use a
more
bit
than
more.
200,
but,
and then the commercial customers.
But the bulk of it is actually on those that use more than 500 units, who are 7% actually of the customer base of Zesco. They're the ones bearing the burden of this emergency tariff, which is going to kick in. On the commercial customers, again, those who use the small businesses, those that use 100 units, 200 units, they have been protected. They have also been given discounts. But it is those that are tending to 500, I've seen a small increase there. But again, those that use above 500 units, they are the ones that where the pressure is going to be. And then on the maximum demand customers, there surely you can't even argue. Though I was very disappointed when I heard someone representing that industry, these are some of the smelters, saying, no, you cannot increase for us. But really, Ambassador, when you look at that, how these things improved, and then we also have got some of our people coming to speak on their behalf, and which is very painful, such that for the first time, I had to, in my submission, inform the DRB that I think we need to review the Public Hearing Act, the law on public hearing, because each time Zesco wants to increase electricity, it has to be dragged through a public hearing, which is a 90-day period. But on the petroleum side, which is also very critical, there is no public hearing. And petroleum prices are reviewed almost every month, adjusted up, but there is no public hearing. So we need to interrogate what is the history of the public hearing on increasing electricity in this country. When did it start? The aspect of that law is coming from the colonial pieces of law, like the public hearing. And that time, there was no regulator in place to speak for the people. At least to have a structure between the supplier and the consumers. They were not there. There were very, very few people who were using electricity, maybe whites only. You can count them on your fingers, and they are the ones. So maybe it made sense at that time to say, can we talk if you want to increase? But now there has been evolution of the society to the point where from a handful of customers when the public hearing started to 1.3 million customers, which on the Zesco database. So how can you administer a public hearing for 1.3 million people? Is it making sense the way we are doing it? If we bring them to Mlungushi, they are 250, and we are saying, hallelujah, it was well attended. 250 out of 1.3 million people.
What is your proposal? So, what should be done if we were to change the consultative process that the power producers in this case do not exploit the people or the industry? We have a regulator. If we strengthen the regulator, we strengthen in this case, Energy Regulation Board.
Towards the autonomy a lot, because it's semi-autonomous. You know, if we strengthen it, we may not necessarily have to embark on maintaining these costly public hearings, because they are very costly, especially if they are being done in different parts of the country. Or if we want them to continue, let it be only if electricity is being increased beyond an inflationary annual adjustment, or only invite customer segments that are affected. Because in this current format, everyone is welcome, even people that are not affected. I sat in one of them and someone who said, no, I'm speaking for the poor, this thing is going to harm the poor. But the poor have been given a discount. How is it going to harm them? So either in view of the unpacking and creating of so many customer categories, only invite representatives or those segments that are going to be impacted negatively. Or if there is just a standard annual inflationary adjustment, surely we don't need that. Or find other pathways of making this effective. Because with 1.3 customers, believe me, you cannot succeed. All the time it is punching holes and this and that. Then the topography has also changed. You have got different political players. In those days, maybe it was only one. There's a different ideological, pathways that has believed in giving this as an essential service for free and what, and it's very, very difficult. It has become very complex, and so the ecosystem has to be analyzed. What is the best way of administering a public hearing which is effective?
Let's go back to the basis. Why do we have the current energy crisis? Can you trace it?
Yeah, first and foremost, it has got it has got legacy issues. It's important to look at the whole journey. Like I mentioned, that a major challenge we have been facing has been the issue of the tariff. So we have had very little investment coming into the energy sector to complement over and above our utility company, Zesco, especially the private sector investment. It has not just been forthcoming. The ones that we have had, like Mwamba, it has been on the basis that they have to supply their expensive electricity to Zesco, who in turn has to go and sell it at a loss. That is why Zesco ended up with $1.3 billion debt. It's because they were not able to pay the independent power producers. So we stagnated development.
So currently, in the current structure, the independent power producers produce power at an expensive rate.
Yes, which is
and sell it to Zesco, who then has to sell it at a loss.
At a loss, yeah. Because if they are getting power, let's say from Mwamba as an example, at 11.5 cents, then they are coming to sell it at 4 cents and 3 cents. So you can imagine the gap which is there. There was also on Dollar Energy, and then there is Mwamba, and also that is already 400 megawatts. Then plus the other imports, imports especially, and then them are relying on hydro, and then they are depleted. They've got a very few generating capacity in view of what they are going through. If it was a private sector company, it could have actually imploded. Yeah, so we were arriving.
So first of all, the generation capacity has been limited by lack of, I think, counterpart support from the private sector because of the issue of tariff.
Because of the issue of the tariff, yes, you've gotten it correct. But also as a country, in terms of our developmental goals, if you read the 7th National Development Plan and the 6th National Development Plan, we continued on the path of exploiting our arbitrage, which is around water bodies, and build more hydropower plants and refurbish and all those, so on and so forth, which is still a good idea because you have to build your power capacity around your arbitrage. However, what we didn't do, in as much as we've done exceptionally well in building hydro capacity, and under normal circumstances, we shouldn't be having challenges. But we did not significantly diversify the generation potential to safeguard against the climate change perspectives. Because as far as 10 years, 15 years, the writing was already on the wall that the days of depending on hydro are numbered. And you can see the mitigation measures in the 6th National Development Plan, in the 7th National Development Plan, and they have got very robust plans, but we did not do adequately to diversify. So especially 2016, we had that major crisis which almost brought the economy to its knees. And that coincided with the promulgation of the 7th National Development Plan, and which postulated that we should never go through this kind of thing we have gone through. But we did not diversify adequately because the tariff was still not attractive for the private sector to enter and to actualize the aspirations of that development plan. And that entered even with a new government as well, inherited that part of that legacy. And boom, here we are, hit by a second wave. So this second wave, definitely one of the major causes to it. There may be other debates about other causes, but you cannot underestimate also the impact of the drought that we have had. You can't take that out. Even if we were to do certain things differently, maybe it could have ameliorated to some extent, but there is just no water to talk about. The impact has been severe. I've been
a strong critic of Zesco. I write a lot about Zesco and about your sector. We've shared the platform together. My criticism with Zesco, first of all, was that Zesco knew that this big hit with the El Nino was coming because, they predicted that the 2015, 2016 one, if you look at the cycle, it always comes after 10 years. There was one, in 2003, 2004, and before that there was one in 1993, 1994, where we even were fed by yellow maize. There is always this El Nino is somehow predictable. My criticism was Zesco, looking at the water allocation that it was given by the Zambezi River Authority. It didn't seem to have planned around the water because the water allocation was actually half of what it receives every year. And I thought that Zesco probably could have started, first maybe I've said that they should have stopped the exports to conserve the water, because the exports and the export demand commitments they made required that they power so much power, use more water, and export to Namibia and Botswana, especially to the new contracts. Secondly, if they had started the load shedding far earlier, maybe giving Zambians load shedding of 3 hours, probably we could have used far less water than behaving the way we're behaving normally, as if we are going to have proper water in the dams, and there are so many power stations lying on Zambezi River. Couldn't Zesco have done that? You know, I'm not an expert. You are the experts.
Well, certainly not an hydrological expert, but when I look at our situation and those forecasts that were made, which I have also read, there is a classification of droughts, and there is what is known as a drought duration, and then which is a separate parameter. Then there is also what is known as the drought severity, which is a different classification on its own. Then there is also what is known as the drought intensity. These are different parameters. Now, drought intensity, you divide the severity of the drought divided by the duration of the drought. So, I'm not sure, because in other reports what I read was that, yes, there was a forecast that it would be severe drought. But on the duration, the duration, yes, it appeared there was little data around that perspective, and there is a possibility that maybe there was hope that the duration would not be so extended in my little understanding, because I just don't know if somebody fully aware that this is what is going to happen, and then you proceed on that course of life. So I think maybe there was some information gap or certain clarities around the intensity aspect, around the severity, the duration, and it is very unfortunate. That's what I can say.
The famine early warning system run by the U.S. government, which targets, it's all about food security and imminent food shortages, I think had given predictions. Maybe it's this habit of both policymakers and leaders failing to listen to you experts. The report, I stumbled upon it first time, July 2023, and it predicted that there'll be one of those severe weather patterns. Then there was an update that was done in November 2023 that then predicted the dry period, especially for farmers, that would occur between end of December and February. And they predicted either that farmers could plant early or could plant after that duration. But I think there was not much debate around it, as it is with many documents authored by experts. And it didn't seem to filter to the leadership. Because if you saw the response, we kept on exporting power, and we kept on exporting maize as well. We kept on exporting mealie meal. Like there was no warning that we would be facing one of the worst droughts probably in a century.
Yeah, I think, like I have mentioned, in my view, when I read there, what I thought I went away with was on the issue of the duration.
Okay.
I saw that, yes, this is a severe drought forecast, but on the intensity, which has to informed by the duration, that seems to have been a gap, because some rains also came, but then around January, there was the which we thought that it would just be maybe for a short period, but then that prolonged. So there was a misalignment, I think, in information communication between even our own maybe weather forecasting and the teams in critical information for decision making. Yeah, but also maybe I don't have front row insight on this, but this is my own understanding. After change of government, if you saw on Kafue Gorge Lower, previous government had successfully commissioned one turbine. And there was 4 turbines that remained. And there was a huge debt which was owing to China Exim Bank, and they had frozen funding to that. So there was a policy statement which was made to finish Kafue Gorge Lower using only generated resources, using ungenerated resources, which actually has been successfully done. And also to raise money, one would wonder where does the money going to come from to
internally
generated to finish Kafue Gorge on the 4 turbines. And then there was all these other debts that required to be dismantled. There was 1.3 billion
to independent power producers.
Yeah, so I think I tend to think that maybe there was a thrust that if we sell a certain portion of power in the sub-region where we can generate a little bit more, it will be able to assist to raise funds to finish this major plant and also to try and reduce the choking debt, which was standing at 1.3. Just making those are just
from
my
available information to you.
Available information
yeah, correct,
to me.
correct.
So
no.
there is that possibility that the export was also maybe to guarantee us a certain level of income compared to what was being raised from home because of the poor tariff. So balancing that requirement plus really a forecast of this drought, how long is it going to last? Or maybe I think it won't, that severe and perhaps that also may have
there could have been competing interests.
Competing interests. So to strike a balance, because one thing that you can also not take away from them, yes, there may have been some slip-ups, but to demolish that 1.3 billion debt, to bring it to 500, and I hear it has been gone considerably lower within this period, I think it is something which is considerable.
The power imports numbers are not looking good, so the debt is going to rise.
Okay, but at least to reduce that, and also to finish building Kafue Gorge lower, those are very big deliverables, I think, for a struggling organization.
Utility company.
Utility company.
Yeah.
On the imports which are coming, according to the research, because I'm familiar with what happens on the Southern Africa power pool, the market there, Zesco has been having challenges to raise money to pay upfront payments, because there is upfront payment. Sometimes they ask you to make 2 months or 3 months upfront payment. So the power traders are the ones that are playing a critical role.
So
in the
Southern Africa Power Pool has invited power traders who can trade the power available in the pool.
Yes.
Explain that.
The Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, has got a regional market for electricity, which is called the Southern Africa Power Pool. Just like the East African community has also got
East African Power Pool.
And West Africa has also got the West African Power Pool, and North Africa has got the North Africa Power Pool. So at Africa level, we have got 5 African power pools, which, according to the African Union mandate under the Africa We Want, is to integrate those 5 African power pools in order to create a single electricity Africa market. So within our region, we have this market where your ESCOMs, your Zesco, all the utility companies, it's like Lusaka Stock of Exchange, you see the way it is, where they list anyone who has got electricity which you want to sit, you enter, you log in, and then you post how much electricity you want to sell at whatever time it is, and what the price, which is like now you are inviting people to bid, and then others who are looking for electricity, they also log in there. They see who is selling electricity at off-peak, at whatever peak time, and how much it is. And if you like the price, maybe you offer your price. If you like it, you buy that electricity and take it to a customer of your choice. So that market has got the utility companies, but it has also got traders. Because in terms of the reforms, one of the beautiful things that have come in is that you don't need to own a generation facility for you
to sell power.
No. Just like in fuel business, you don't have to own a refinery for you to participate.
Fuel.
You can go and buy from those who are producing and take it to a customer of your choice.
So now that is happening in electricity.
It is happening also in electricity, and it is a product of the Electricity Act of 2019, that reform. And so, in tandem with the other countries in the region. So you also have got the traders. Even yourself, if you have an electricity trading license, you can get configured on the SAP, the Southern Africa Power Pool, and you'll be able to check there who has got electricity to sell and what is the price. And you can also bid, I'm looking for so much power at this price. Then if someone sees that, they can reach out to you. Then you take it to your customer.
Are the power traders also have, is there a similar market for them in Zambia? All we know are these bulk supply agreements that are direct with Zesco, for example, CEC or Northwestern Energy Company. It looks like there is no market for middlemen, those power traders. Does it exist also in Zambia?
Yeah, the market has now been created, and it is evolving, and it is going to cause competition for the traditional utility companies, actually, because some of them will be able to find electricity which is so cheap on the SAP and be able to bring it here, look for a customer, and be able to compete with a customer who doesn't have binding contracts with the utility
Zesco,
company. Yes.
So there's a possibility that a power trader can find cheap electricity from South Africa.
Yes.
And then take it to the mines or to an industry directly.
Anybody else.
Is this where the open access policy now comes in? Where, because maybe at ideological level, the president's recent announcement where he said, first of all, they will unbundle, cabinet approved, they will unbundle Zesco. Zesco will be left, I think, with generation capacity or generation infrastructure. The transmission infrastructure, retail and distribution will be taken to another company. We don't know what form of that company to be, whether it will be state-owned, whether they will sell this infrastructure. For us, from the policy side, we've been calling on the president to allow us to have a debate, because we know when you touch Zesco, the emotions are so invested. We're coming from a history where state-owned enterprises were so dismantled and bundled willy-nilly, and we have this huge unemployment crisis. But before, you are a technical expert, before we bring in the politics, so the decision to unbundle Zesco, where you separate generation infrastructure from two transmission lines, retail and distribution lines, is to allow, for example, for power traders to get import power and allow it to be wheeled to whichever customer it is.
Yeah, there are two angles. First of all, the issue of the power traders is a very beautiful thing. And I'm very happy, actually, that I lobbied extensively during the time the Electricity Act of 1995 was being repealed, when we were going through collecting submissions and industry validations. I wrote a submission. I said we need to allow for more players to participate in the electricity sector. And can we allow traders, like what it is in other countries, people who don't have own their own generation, who can buy electricity from wherever they can find it, because now people are building power plants, companies are having their own embedded generation capacity. Sometimes they have got surplus electricity, they don't know what to do with it. A power trader can go and scoop that and take it to somebody of their choice. So you need to make the environment more friendly. So this is where the open access issue came in. Now, the open access policy is coming from 2016. When the 7th National Development Plan was being made, it is sitting there, which says that an open access regime shall be introduced in the sector, which was exported into the Electricity Act of 2019. 2019. However, it is the operationalization of the same, because you need a code of conduct. How are we going to manage ourselves? Because now there's going to be all these traders. There will also be other players who will say, look, me, I don't want to be a trader. Well, I can be a trader, but I want to build my own generation, and I don't want to build my own transmission line.
Because that's very costly.
Yeah, costly. And how many can we have crisscrossing the country? But I want to use the existing backbone. So can we make it easy and friendly? So that is where the grid code, the code of conduct, which is the open access code of conduct, came in, which was recently approved by cabinet, because that's the operationalization side.
Part of it. It's already in the law.
It's already in the law. So that I don't have to be unrealistically blocked, because remember, if you have your own generation capacity, or you are a trader, you have seen electricity from Namibia, from somebody who's got a solar plant, and he has got surplus electricity, and you scoop a megawatt or 2 megawatt. Then you have seen here, you want to take that power to a certain customer in Zambia. Then you come to Zesco, for instance, or you go to CEC. Oh, I've got I want to use your line to take electricity. The first question is, to which customer do you want to take it? So you might find that that customer you want to take it, they are also interested. The owner of the distribution line, they are also interested in that. So already, that is a governance issue, because they can give you a tariff which will not make it viable for you to supply that particular customer. And this is where the issue of partial unbundling or full unbundling or whatever usually comes in. So that, look, can we have generators on their own? And then this side, traders as well, who don't have generation capacity. And a separate entity that owns the road, like the highway, you see? And so that anyone who wants to supply a customer, they have to go to a single customer who owns the single service provider who owns the transmission, so that you level the ground. Because this thing of you are generating, and then you also own the transmission. Then I come myself, I have invested in my generation. And then I have to depend on you, my competitor, to move electricity to a customer of my choice, a mine opening in a particular location, which you are also interested in. That brings a lot of uncomfort, unless where my competitor is not interested in that particular customer. But more often than not, you find that in terms of their growth projections, they will also be interested. So this is what gives credence to say, look, at least at a bare minimum, can we maybe partially have an independent system operator or this thing? But ultimately, is a decision has to be made. Do you want it to be privatized and given to private companies, or you want it to remain a state-owned enterprise, given its sensitivities? Like what has happened in other countries where they unbundled, but the transmission still remained an SOE. It doesn't necessarily need to be given to private hands. Okay. It can be remaining still state-owned.
Before we transition to
but also sector, maybe, you see, unbundling is a very complex thing. You have to do it maybe partially. For instance, what I noticed with the Ghana experience, because I spent considerable amount of time there, is that at distribution, they unbundled around 5 regions. So a distribution created 5 companies where you have got this, maybe supplying this region, and maybe you supplying this northern region, or this one. So you can unbundle per region. And if the sensitivities are high, you can start with a pilot project where maybe you pick one particular region and say, let's try this region, which is not very slippery in terms of too frequent challenges.
I saw in South Africa that the distribution network is given to local municipalities, local authorities to, you have to buy to from Swane.
Even in Zambia, initially it was the councils in the constitution. It was in the constitution, and I saw it when I was sitting on the Zesco reforms, that the municipalities also had that mandate to distribute electricity.
Wow.
But I think during the review, it must have been taken away from them. But it was there.
It's an empowering thing, and you are not only decentralizing, but also the distribution part is an earning income for the council, where you localize even the experts. But because Ghana and Kenya were at where we are, where the power utility that was unbundled, generation, transmission, and distribution were separated, and I think some service provider again was created, and that doesn't seem to have gone very well for both Ghana and Kenya. They
have rebundled again.
There's a quest to rebundle. Yeah. I don't know where they are. You can just speak to that briefly.
It is the way you do it. First of all, see, if you give to the municipality, you have to make sure that they have got the capacity. You have to capacitate them to run that operation. If they don't have, then you have to fragment and maybe just give them billing. But then let them have a service level agreement with maybe the utility company to have the O&M, the operation and maintenance aspect, to ensure the integrity of the infrastructure is not compromised. Then you give them only certain softer tasks which they can
like
do.
Billing.
Like this thing we are going in, the net metering, I think, because that's a national project. You can work with the municipalities where you give them this kind of mandates and things like that, or work through their offices, and because they are really on the ground, compared to the utility company. But on the unbundling, you don't have to rush. You have to do it very carefully, because you can create a lot of other problems. You can do it maybe partially, or you can do it, you start with a pilot. Maybe, let's say, take out maybe, let's say, this particular, can we take out the generation? Then should we take out generation alone? Then transmission and distribution still remains together. Or should we fragment in 2 or 3 parts? So for me, instead of doing it wholesomely at a go, it would be better to move in a phased approach. That is what I would say. Because if you move that, you can open up the carcass and then create more challenges that you have to start wanting to unbundle again. And then the issue, what is it that you want to achieve? Because, Ambassador, I read a lot, and I can tell you that all the manifestos of the big parties, I have read them on energy particularly. The unbundling is not a new thing. It is coming even in the Patriotic Front manifesto. It is there. You find the unbundling aspect, but it wasn't done. It was a sensitive thing. So it appears like even the current government seems to be seeing that if we are going to succeed with an open access regime, you will have to ensure that we make it less challenging to access the transmission line, because that is where the game changer is. It is easy access to the transmission line across the country. Otherwise, you can have a lot of challenges. So I think other jurisdictions succeeded, others have not also succeeded, but also the maturity of the industry also matters, because some of the countries, they have been in this space for more than 200 years, whereas our industry is still growing at a certain level. So certain things, they may not be in a place which can support certain decisions which are extremely liberalized. But if we have to move like that, we have to do it consultatively in a manner that everyone understands that it won't bleed further problems. But we want to see if we can find another way of ensuring that open access can succeed without undue challenges, then we might not need to do that particular unbundling. We may not do it.
Okay. On the electricity sector, before we leave it and we briefly go to the oil sector, electricity penetration in this country. You said Zesco has 1.3 million customers, yet we have a population of 20 million. I think you sat on Rural Electrification Authority, and taking power to our people in rural areas doesn't only, I think, spur development, value chain, agro-businesses. The penetration of electricity in our country is quite low. I don't know at what percentage it's sitting, whether it's around 30% or it's quite low. What should be done in that area? Then my second question would be the current load shedding and the current power crisis. What should be done? Maybe speak to those two issues.
Yeah. First and foremost, the electrification rate in Zambia is one of the lowest in the region, which actually exemplifies maybe the levels of poverty that we have and other services that have suffered. Because when you look at the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17. One of those goals is the SDG goal number 7, which calls for universal access to clean, affordable, and sustainable energy for all by the year 2030. That is the only goal of the 17 goals which has got direct implication for the performance of 8 other SDGs.
Wow.
Like the SDG on quality healthcare delivery depends on the success of the SDG on electricity. The SDG on quality education, on poverty eradication, on climate action, on gender equality, and the sanitation and job creation, they depend directly on this particular SDG. So if you don't do well on this, it will show on the other SDGs as well. So we have not done well as a country generally. 60 years of independence, we cannot be at 35% electrification of our country. Rural electrification, somewhere between 8 to 14%, which is very, very concerning and very unfortunate. But that just shows you the structural challenges that we have been, and that even if we will be priding ourselves that we have now installed more capacity than our peak demand, we still have a huge untapped potential inside. So we need to help the country with off-grid solutions, but not only that. One of the things I noted when I served as in that short, it was a very short space of time when I was at RIA, was that work closely with their Royal Highnesses, and that I noted that our village configuration in Zambia is not ideal for development because they are so spaced. They are not aggregated together. You find one house here, another house 2 kilometers, another 5 kilometers, like that. So other countries, they have aggregated a rural development plan, aggregates the villages together. They can go and plow, but they must be coming to a communal
for service delivery, such as water and water reticulation and power
and electricity and something like that. So because they are so dispersed, it is extremely expensive to do the grid extension to one small facility there to the other. It has made it very difficult. So their Royal Highnesses have engaged them, even myself, directly through their House of Chiefs, and that we need to do something, and a number of them have started. When you are settling them, please settle them in a communal structure, and then communal configuration. They can be going to plow. That way it's going to be easy. Otherwise it is difficult to reach them in their current setups the way they are. So there is a structural issue aspect, but also a funding issue, because you can run the lines. Like I noted a number of other villages, they have got transmission line which has reached them, the distribution line. But
you usually reach the palace and the school or the health centers.
But the onboarding, the people are not being onboarded. Why? Because also of the connection fee, which is a major hindrance as well. This is where the World Bank support program, we must acknowledge what they did, because they started a program to subsidize for those who are not able to pay the connection fee. But also part of the solution is the ongoing program on accelerating the deployment of off-grid solutions. I saw that the Rockefeller want to do 1,000 off-grids. That is the way to go, because where it is expensive to run a grid extension, you can just do a localized distribution network
have 1
megawatt there. So that is a good program. And of course, we need to continue diversifying the energy portfolio. Most of our people, 60% more than that, they are still on charcoal, and which is the charcoal industry is worth more than 5 billion kwacha annually in this country. So it's
very lucrative.
It's not something you can destabilize. Well, not just here, but also East Africa exports charcoal and to the Middle East, and some of the charcoal is actually sneaked out of the country into East Africa, and then it ends up elsewhere because it's very lucrative.
What happens to our tree with such a lucrative?
It's. I have noted that the establishment of the green economy, that is a very positive agenda, because what we didn't do is to acknowledge that the charcoal industry is a big industry. You can't destabilize it enough.
There are even exports, like you are saying.
Yes, it employs more than 50,000 people, according to studies done by competent organizations like USAID. And they will tell you, according to one of the reports I saw, just around Lusaka alone, almost 320-foot containers of charcoal is traded around. It's considerable. But what perhaps we could have done is formalize the trade. We recognize that we cannot stop it by 2030. This employs a lot of people. If 50,000 is there, then one of them has got 1 or 2 people depending on them. You are potentially talking with a population of almost 200,000 who are benefiting around this. So other countries, what they have done is you aggregate them together. You charcoal burners, this is your area that you are going to cut the trees from. When you cut the trees, you are also responsible for replanting, afforestation. You use the same one and you incentivize them to ensure that before you be allocated any other patch, you must be able to have done the tree planting there. And then also the education, the technical skills to these same charcoal burners. Because the current kiln, that traditional kiln that is used to produce charcoal, the way it is done in Zambia, the charcoal recovery rate is less than 30%.
Wow.
Meaning that the wastage is about 70%. So other countries, what they have done, they build the skills with these charcoal burners to help them build more efficient kilns, which have got higher yields, which can reach maybe 50%, 60%, 70% charcoal recovery. Such that if they can recover so much charcoal from one heap, then it will reduce their dash back into the forest to go and cut more trees. So we need a comprehensive program that deals with imparting technical skills, but to the charcoal burners, but also
so it can't just
them.
be easy like burning burning charcoal.
No. We need a more holistic with more charcoal replacement strategies, because the population that depends on it is too big. We need more penetration on the gas, have more distribution points, and easy to access, and sensitize the people on the safety of using it because they are still scared of it, and more measures, and concentrate on the urban areas, because 60% of the charcoal is consumed in the urban areas. So if we target the urban areas to shift them to gas and other pathways of cooking, it means we are killing the demand for charcoal in the urban areas, and that will reduce the impact of tree cutting. But in the rural areas and peri-urban, they will continue using charcoal and firewood for a long time to come. Load shedding.
Load shedding, yes.
You know, the challenge with the infrastructure in the energy sector is that it's not something you can build just now, you know, and bring it online. They take time. How has been the response? The part of the response has been to remove a lot of bottlenecks to ensure that you and me, we are able to, those who can manage, if you want to import solar panels, you can import on your own. Previously, you needed a permit. Even to just import one solar panel, you needed to go and get a permit from ERB. Only a few months ago, that was waived. So that if you see, look, Mr. Patel, the price is so high in Cairo Road or Chachacha, then you see in Google, in Alibaba, you know, Zambians, we like checking and importing vehicles. You can buy on your own and bring them in the country. There are no taxes to pay. They will land cheaply than buying across the shops. So those who can manage, they are doing that, and they are migrating. I have done my rounds. People are buying. Actually, solar panels are selling like vitamin C during the COVID time. You'll be shocked how many containers are selling, meaning the country is responding. Then the bigger power plants on solar, there is a pipeline of them and different levels. They take time. I know 100 megawatts out of Zambia in December, it will be coming on. But they take long as well, because if you are going to do 100 megawatts of solar, you need almost 500,000 of solar panels. So those have to be made for you. You can't find them off the shelf. It might take maybe 3, 4 months, 5 months of making them for you. The transit time, 3 months, construction period, it's talking of 18 months before
and
you
the
can...
storage requires the battery storage.
All those things, a lot of them. So they take longer to turn around. The gensets, very expensive to run. 350,000 kwacha for one at the market. And that has made some difference, and we have to acknowledge that. And getting imports as well, wherever it is coming from, you have to acknowledge, and also grateful to Zimbabwe that in this current space, even with their challenges, they are giving us something. No, we have to acknowledge that. But also, maybe, Ambassador, we cannot avoid to talk about some of the legacy issues. One of the most painful things is the Zambia-Tanzania interconnector, which has been on and off for more than 10 years. If that interconnector had been finished, I think we wouldn't have been in this situation that we are in.
Yeah, because I remember when I was permanent secretary in Northern Province, we were doing that interconnector from Pensulo Serenje into Kasama. And from Kasama, it was supposed to head down to the DRC for purposes of transmission and up to Mbala to reach the, from Sumbawanga, the interconnector from Tanzania. So I think it's hanging between Kasama and Mbala. And for Tanzania, I think from Mbeya to Sumbawanga to connect with the region in Mbala.
Which I've seen that the Tanzania government has escalated the construction because they have also seen a business opportunity. And they're also doing that not because they have solved their own load shedding challenges. They also have got infrastructure challenges, a huge population which is not connected, but we need that interconnector, as part of the long term, because you asked me what should be done. So there are long-term prospects, talking to generation, building other power plants in the northern circuit of the country, improving the transmission network, improving in solar, which is a major drive at the moment, which I think this government, it is on its watch to shift the country to exploit the sunshine economy. Because in order to balance the generation capacity, imports being ramped up in the short term out of that emergency tariff, which came up. Obviously, first is this in 2 days' time.
Yes, on 1st November.
Personally, I just don't think that immediately we will reach 7 hours, because this is when they have to start mobilizing. Not everyone buys power on the same day, so they have to mobilize some resources. So my own personal projection is that it will start improving in stages, maybe by 15th towards the month end, then we can maybe have that 7 hours. That's my own projection. And continuously sensitizing members of the public about the frugal use of electricity. That is an expensive commodity. Use it wisely. This thing of living in appliances which you don't even need their own and must be discouraged. Use the solar geysers. In fact, now there are even hybrid solar geysers which can use either solar or electricity. You just decide to which switch to switch on. And you can retrofit the current geyser that you have. The companies have started retrofitting. They'll just come and retrofit another element there and they put a panel for solar on top. So that you take away the geyser, because the cost of electricity at home, 60% is heating. That's a geyser and all these other cooking and other things which have got elements. So if you go on gas, you take out that, it will reduce the burden a lot. Yeah, so I think when I look at the initiatives around the net metering, the issue is just to make people understand what is this about in a language that people understand, and push the public service workers. There are more than 500,000, and the public service microfinance has started funding them. I'm told the deductions are so small that you can't feel it. So if we can migrate more than 200,000, 300,000 off the grid to self-sustaining, then we are making good progress in our energy transition. So that is a national program, and other initiatives as well which are coming up, which are national in nature. We need to support them and ensure that we continue to invest in information management.
So the problem is not going away soon.
It is going to, we are crossing into next year with this challenge. And the reason is that power plants around solar are still in the pipeline. Some of them are coming up. And then at the moment, we have to depend on the imports, a lot of them. And also with the onset of the rains, I'm told the forecasts are looking good, but that build-up can be maybe around March, April, going forward there. Then we can see some improvement. And I'm hoping that we don't have to overuse, we don't have to overuse at all.
Water allocation.
Yeah, water allocation, because the way we have depleted, it is going to take maybe 2 to 3 years to achieve good levels of water in those reservoirs. So, and by then, some of the interconnectors may also be up. So, but major learning curve. It has been very stressful for everyone, the industry, psychological impact on consumers, not just consumers, but also on Zesco employees, because I don't think they have gone through resiliency training, so the stress levels have been very high, and misunderstandings and finger pointings when we have a situation like this. So you can sympathize with them as well. I'm sure you have seen what we are reading in the media, MD, all those kind of things.
Let's transition to the oil sector. Zambia is an import-oriented country. We don't have oil, so we have to depend on oil. Early on, President Kaunda made strategic decisions and strategic investment. He invested in a pipeline all the way from Dar es Salaam to Ndola. He invested, of course, in a rail line, Tazara, that could help with other things. It could also help with import of oil to our country. Then we have an investment in Indeni that seems to have been somehow decommissioned by this government. What are your thoughts about the oil sector in our country and to make it sustainable, to avoid disruptions, and then to avoid the high costs?
Yeah, maybe allow me, before we transition to that sector, to deal with one particular issue around the Zesco. I know this is a very big issue that we cannot exhaust even within this interview, Ambassador. I think myself, I'll criticize where it is due, but I also would take note where something in line with the reforms have been done. Contrary to what I've seen flying around the Zesco itself as an institution, certain things that may not have done well. But in terms of pushing the tariff plan to cost reflective, to secure that 5-year tariff approval process, to me was a major success which has been done by that management team. The issue on the ring fencing 730,000, giving them discounts, 730,000 most vulnerable, and also go to the businesses where there are thousands of them, give them discounts and shift the burden elsewhere. That has to be taken note as well. And the finishing of the Kashua Gorge lower, that has to be acknowledged. It's a project that has run.
Doc,
across.
you seem to have kind words for, probably I should name Victor Mapani.
No, I'm saying as an institution.
Outgoing.
No, I'm saying as an institution.
Okay.
As an institution, and because there has been a lot of attacks on them, it's an incompetent all those kind of things. So,
in your view, the dismantling of the debt,
1.3 billion
it
has to be talked about.
Okay.
It's a major thing that was affecting and choking up that. That is a major success they have done. The finishing of the Kafue Gorge lower has to be talked about. The issue on ring fencing the most vulnerable of our groups.
With these tariff increases.
It's a big thing. And also the repositioning of the tariff for the next 5 years, so that every investor is able to see where things are going. But then also we had more than 600,000 customers who were pending to be connected for more than 4 years. That has been demolished, that particular backlog.
What's the pending list now? Do you have
I don't
current
have the
statistics?
current statistics, but the backlog was massive. It was huge. It has been demolished.
Yeah, it was around 60,000, I think.
Yeah, okay, I think you are right, about 60,000. But also as a researcher myself, because I sat on the Zesco reforms, so there are certain things I cannot talk because I'm still under oath of secrecy. But certain things, when I hear, it is overstaffed, but the wage bill is 13% of the revenue.
Is Zesco overstaffed?
Look, the revenue, the cost of labor, the wage bill, is 13%. Now, 13%,
of the total revenue.
Yes. You can't say that, maybe it is, but look at how much is attributed to that.
Okay.
You see, and then demolishing that. And then also, there was a lot of outsourced IT, softwares, payroll, and to international companies, which was costing Zesco more than $11 million every year. But all that has been collapsed into the internal IT infrastructure. So when you hear, it is overstaffed, the workforce, we also have to look at the customer base, because in industry, there are ratios that we use.
What's the ratio between our customer base and Zesco employment?
The 1.3 million customers, retail alone, talking about industry hour, then you divide by the workforce, and they don't have the actual figures on the workforce, but the last time I checked, there were about 3,000 slightly above that, which the organizational structure had not been updated. It was an old organizational structure, but now they have so many, they have grown so big. Yeah, so I think maybe we need another day for that particular.
No, I've always said, even of governments, I've always given an example of the Patriotic Front, that it's a government that built schools, colleges, universities, health centers, clinics, hospitals, roads, airports.
Yeah.
The trouble, when you don't tell your story, the story of your enemy will stick.
Yes.
So probably here, for the first time, I'm hearing a positive assessment of that management. We take pride and time to condemn. And here you are giving a statistic that actually, on reflection, they could have done better.
Yeah, and also on the issue on the export, you know, I participated in the validation of the Electricity Act and made submission. There is no single person who can ever import electricity in Zambia or export. The way the process works is that, let's say Zesco management, they have seen an opportunity to export electricity. They will do a board paper, which has to be taken to the board. That's the first oversight structure, has to approve and interrogate. Are you sure what is the impact on the local market? Is everything sorted out? Okay, please, you can go ahead. So they will secure first approval from the first oversight board structure, which is the board. Then they have to follow what the Electricity Act provides. Go and get authorization or a permit or clearance from the Minister of Energy. That is in the law. It is in the Act. Anyone who wants to import or export, they have to end up not at the ERB, at the ministry. That is another oversight body where you do your paper and justification why you want to export power. And they have got their own due diligence, which they have to perform to see if there is justification for you to import these powers. You know, electricity is a very sensitive issue with a lot of political undertones, and it's a socio-economic issue. So it's a policy issue to take electricity out of the country. It cannot be pinned on one person. No, there are about 2 oversight bodies. So was there a collapse at all these 2 oversight bodies?
So no,
or it was the
we probably shouldn't, because you know why we are very hard on that management and board, is that, first of all, our economy has almost collapsed. Look, the projections of 5.3% economic growth revised to 3.5%. Now, the IMF paper the other week said it may be as low as 1.2%. And we may be lucky, we may go to negative. So the effect of load shedding has been severe on our economy. And someone must take responsibilities. In fact, what you are alerting me to is that, so instead of maybe blaming the managing director, probably then we say, where was the board and where was the minister? You mean they didn't see, because these are oversight institutions.
It's a very big decision to take electricity. No single person can ever do it. So this is why I'm saying, what information sources were used? Or it was the lack of clarity on certain key metrics like the drought intensity, the drought duration, or something like that. Because if you have all these structures with your own due diligences, still give you a go-ahead, then there is possibility that maybe there was a timing underestimation, you know, to some extent. But like we earlier said, there was also maybe a lot of competing issues. But I just wanted to ensure that this sometimes it is good also to recognize certain good things that have come out.
No, Doc, you've always been objective. Your criticism is fair. You give criticism where it is due, and you recognize, I think, positive facts very well. And one of the reasons you are sitting here is because I've always found you very objective. You are never enticed by the politics. You are more to your resource as an expert, just to say as it is.
It's not very easy. Sometimes you receive phone calls. Why did you say that is not?
Yeah, no, I know. In fact, when you are enemies of both, then that means you are doing a good job.
Yeah, but coming to petroleum.
Yes.
You know, the major issues, there are 2 there.
Yeah.
The issue on the price and the issue on the availability. The national security, energy security, from a petroleum perspective.
Yeah.
You know, those are 2 things that create issues for energy: the price and the availability. Now, at the moment, we are sitting with minimal stock levels, because on petrol, about 9 point something million liters of petrol.
What's our national consumption?
That is
either per month or per year?
That's not very good, because per day we're consuming about almost 2 million point something, which translates to 5 days maybe. But there is also some stocks which constantly updating. Then we are also consuming, and this information is in public domain. That's why I'm mentioning it. Then on diesel we have about 39 million liters. Again, diesel we consume more than 3 million. That is almost 10 days of stock. You see? Now, according to international best practice, you need to be having about 90 days of stock levels in the country.
We're having 10 days stock.
Yeah, we've never achieved 90 days as a country. We've never. And maybe 60 days, then you are quite okay.
But then we are severe if we are 10 days.
Well, we frequently have been coming to this ever since certain changes in the supply chain happened. Because when you want to, there was, maybe let it come this way. The cause of this is because we don't have strategic petroleum reserves as a country. The way we have food reserve agents, we don't have it on the petroleum sector. As a policy government, as a policy issue, we started building strategic fuel reserve depots in the provincial centers. After finishing that, we needed to start moving to populating those depots with strategic fuel reserves. Reserves sit in strategic reserve tanks. You don't touch them. Those are reserves there for use when there is an intervention in the market, when there is pressure to increase the prices, and you say, no, we cannot do that. You go from there, you discharge, you sell to the private sector. So that's what part of the function of a strategic petroleum reserve is. And we don't have a policy as a country which talks specifically to strategic reserves, how we are to build the strategic reserves, and under what circumstances can we access, and how we are supposed to finance. We don't have that as a country in place. So we need to do that, because if you have strategic fuel reserves, you would be able to protect the country against harsh realities, like if there are disruptions to the transit corridors, to the supply chain, because sometimes things are happening due to geopolitical issues in corridors where we are importing from. Sometimes challenges are in the transit corridors. Maybe on the high seas, you have heightened piracy activities, or sometimes in the passage, like we saw minor disruptions on the transit corridor through Zimbabwe. So you don't want, when there is a minor or something major, within few days you must be out of that cave. You must off-ramp immediately from that without exposing the challenges. So we need to do a bit more as a country in terms of building strategic fuel reserves. We already have a cost line in the fuel fund, in the fuel pricing mechanism, which has been collapsed into the electricity fund to create one energy fund. So I'm expecting that fund be operationalized. Every electricity trader, every company that generates electricity in this country must be able to contribute to that fund. And the same way, consumers of fuel, you and each time you buy fuel, there is a small fund there which is going into this energy fund, so that this fund can grow and be used for certain interventions in the market. So we need to do that, you see? Yeah, so...
the role of Tazama and Indeni?
Yeah, I think maybe before I go to that, because there are two issues, it's a supply issue and the price issue. Okay. So on the supply issue, I have talked about dealing with the strategic reserves, building that, and also constantly investing in energy diplomacy, dealing with the transit corridors from a diplomatic point of view. Mozambique is a very, very important corridor for us. Zimbabwe is an important corridor for us. Tanzania is a very, very important corridor for us. Namibia is also now a very important corridor for us. Building access to Angola is a matter of national security for us. So all these projects have to be heightened so that we improve the transportation aspect, the pathways, and also the source. Now, on the price issue, if you don't produce your own, it means you are going to be importing, which we do. And therefore, you are going to be susceptible or vulnerable to the exchange rate and the price on the international market. Like I've consistently said, the foremost option to guarantee a stable price and a lower price is a government-to-government transaction. There is nothing which can beat a government-to-government bilateral agreement. If you pick 1 or 2 or 3 countries, you negotiate with them, you can constrain your private sector to be buying from those particular corridors, and the price will be able to land at a predetermined landed wholesale price. So
it doesn't have to be government to buy it. It may be your oil marketing company.
You can just do bilateral agreement and encourage the private sector. You go and buy from there. If you buy from anywhere else, you are on your own. Here, the price that you are selling, the landed cost is this, and therefore retail price is built based on the official landed price out of bilateral perspectives. So you do that, then you have to sit with the bilateral partners and agree a price. When you agree a price, also agree when the price would be getting reviewed, to review the price. Can we lock the price to 3 months? No reviewing. Because sometimes the prices go up on the global market based on perception, based on sentiment, not because the cost of production has increased. So many times, the oil-producing countries, they go into windfall profits, like if sentiments have changed in the market, the prices will build up, but the cost of production is still remaining. So you can, but you have to know how to negotiate, you know? You have to know. And not also to underestimate neighboring countries like Angola. It may have insufficient refining capacity, but it sits with a lot of commodity which can be swapped. Because me, I can talk to them and say, yes, I know that your refineries are not enough. Well, you are also even importing, refined to augment what? But just give me that same crude. Can I agree with you a good price on your crude, which you have in abundance, and I'll go and refine it somewhere elsewhere at a price. So me, what is important is the landed price. So how we negotiate also is important. So to deal with the price, apart from trying to stabilize the exchange rate, you can also venture into that kind of bilateral arrangement. The biofuel issue as well. One of the issues, there were 2 major factors that as a country we adopted a biofuels mandate, which we have not implemented. No, we are still, I think, piloting. The number 1 reason for talking to biofuel, apart from fighting climate change, so that we reduce the exhaust, because we are introducing cleaner, renewable feedstock, is to reduce the impact of the demand on the kwacha for dollars. Because if 20% of your feedstock, of your petrol, is coming from a local feedstock, then it means your import bill will come down by about 20%, meaning the demand on Forex is going to fall by about 20%. That is one of the major reasons we said we want to do this. Then the second one is on the job creation through the outgrower scheme. But We have not agreed on a crop up to now because we have to agree which crop are we going to use. Because
which crops do
I can produce, well, we've been talking around cassava, but is it in the law? Is there an SI that is, supposing I decide to use maize, because maize will give me higher calorific value to produce ethanol. Supposing I decide to use millet, so we need to agree as a country which crop, which is a crop, what is the price, and help people to see value. Because if they don't see value, the ethanol production will still be going to other industries like the pharmaceuticals, the beer industry and things like that. They won't see the value to take it to the fuel industry.
I saw something that spurred the agriculture sector, the issue of edible oils, where we encourage companies, I think Zamanita, Petroleum and others even set up plants, and we told our farmers to grow soybeans, which then could be sold to these. And then there was a slap on imports for edible oils. Cooking oil was banned. But somehow we never leveraged that market because the price of cooking oil would just shoot up. And government again were forced to abandon that price. While our farmers had grown soybeans, I think there are lessons there.
Yeah. Even on the same feedstock for the petroleum, if you saw there was one time, we talked a lot on Jatropa, and all those people grew and they lost money because the market was not guaranteed. So we need to ensure that if we say, no matter what, 10% all the fuel to be sold in Zambia must have 10% of biofuel. So now the next will be, how are we going to implement this? Because I have got oil marketing companies that are importing petrol on their own, and there is no restriction. Each one is importing from wherever they want. So at what point is the blending going to be taken? Because some of them have their own depots. Most of them are taking it direct to their service stations. So at what point are we going to be doing the blending? You see, that becomes an issue. If this thing is so big and we feel will drive so much benefit as a country, then I would even rather allow Indeni, can you be the sole importer of petrol in the country, bring it in our national depot so that we make it blending easy, then everyone go and get from there. Because as they are so fragmented with their own depots, this one don't even have depot, he's just got 2 filling stations for his petrol, which he brings, he takes straight to the filling station. You will have blending mechanism very difficult to deploy, to implement. So we need to make a bold decision, because 20% reduction on our import bill is something that we should try to do. It will help to stabilize even the price, because the major issue is the exchange rate.
And even our exchange rate market will stabilize.
It will stabilize.
Because there are periods like this when you're importing fuel and now fertilizer, and it collapses the market, the quarter just loses value.
It's a very big thing. So I think we shouldn't be, now you asked me something about Indeni.
Yeah, my question about Indeni is very clear. These were strategic investment that were done by Dr. Kaunda. I think he knew that there would be this perennial issue. Now there's a fresh argument that it's actually cheaper to import finished products than allow Indeni and Tazama to work. In fact, Tazama has been refashioned, repurposed to be, to bring finished product, in this case, diesel. What are your thoughts about that 2 sets of infrastructure?
Each time I'm asked about this Indeni thing, sometimes I get a bit emotional, maybe because I served in the board of that institution. When I was transferred to that board from ERB, they didn't have an engineer on the board. So we, at that particular time, the idea was to modernize the refinery. And I found the management there had done considerably well in terms of instrumentation and things like that, but then we needed to modernize. How? It was to put a hydrotreater unit, which was costing about $60 million. That hydrotreater was to produce clean fuels so that we start selling low sulfur diesel in Zambia, start producing it, because Indeni was producing high sulfur diesel. And we were in a breach of the regional protocols and things like that. So a hydro treater was about 60 million, which I found business.
$60 million.
I found, their team had already done a lot of research, and consultants had already been engaged, international renowned consultants, companies that do these things. Then the big thing was we are bringing commingled feedstock because Indeni has become less efficient, and it is not able to give us the different parcels of products where we want, so we have to commingle. Now, commingling, if you buy a parcel of crude oil, 40%, of course the price is low. Now, 60% has to be refined product, a combination of petrol and diesel, which is at a higher price because it's already been refined. Then you commingle this together, and the ship starts off with a commingled feedstock. The price of commingled feedstock is higher than the price of uncommingled. And we noticed that each shipload that was arriving, there was about $10 million, which the country was spending more over and above the cost of uncommingled because of the commingling. Okay. And because we are using about 8 to 9 shiploads per year, the country was spending about $80 to $90 million more just because of the commingling. Over a period of 10 years, that's about $900 million, which is far more beyond the cost of a hydro cracker unit, which, if installed, we are going to stop the importing the commingling, and we are also
going to process clean
fuels also. So within the hydro treater budget and also the hydro cracker, these were coming to about 500 million kwacha. Of
$500 million.
Within 8 years, 9 years, we will have already made enough savings such that when the paper was done, even some commercial banks were willing, because it would just be a case of ring-fencing these monies and things. But because it's a policy issue, we went to the shareholders and told them. Then the shareholders said, oh, no, this is too much money. We will get for you a concession loan, which is far much cheaper. So don't go and borrow on the open markets. And that was the last we ever had of that. Then we also said, look, the way the future is going, can we rebrand Indeni to Indeni Energy, which thing has now finally been done. When we rebrand it, we wanted Indeni to go into electricity production as well. That is why we said in dollar, Indeni Energy. If we wanted to be an oil company
why
alone,
electricity
if
production?
we wanted it to be an oil company alone, we could have just said Indeni Oil. You see, but we saw the trend is changing, Total Energies, Oryx Energies, because the future is moving to transition energy, where you must be careful now that where we are heading to, the EV industry is beginning to emerge. So you must start carrying both the aspects of petroleum and the renewable energy as well, be repositioned, such that go and invest in solar energy if you want. Go and start doing other things that talk to electricity as well, other than this. That was why we proposed at that particular time the rebranding, which I think happened now. Yeah, so, but when that never happened, then they said, I saw an advert by IDC to try and bring in a private sector who can bring $600 million to do those things. It was advertised. I'm told the buyers also wanted to get the pipeline, but you see now you bring in complication because the pipeline is a bilateral asset. It's owned with another country. So a lot of dynamics collapsed, all these things, until the refinery was put on care and maintenance in 2019. And come change of government, there was no reverse gear until we just rebrand this thing. So those are the issues. Go back to where we started from, start bringing in finished product. Obviously, my take myself has been a big pipeline. That is what I've always believed in, because I knew that even if we put in this pipeline, to start transporting diesel alone, it will not give us sufficient volume. So now it is able to do 70%, 80%, but then the other volume is still coming by road, to meet national demand and have inventory. And so we might not be getting the full benefit of the reduction in the cost of transportation because of the pipeline, because we still have a significant volume coming in by road. Solution, pipeline, brand new, either multi-purpose, like we have between Durban and Johannesburg. It carries both petrol and both diesel.
What's wrong with our pipeline?
It is small. The volume is small, which it brings. The population has grown, the demand has grown. So what it transports, what we are getting out of it, cannot meet our national demand on diesel. It cannot. So we need a pipeline, either do another one along the same corridor. This one, maybe it can be converted to petrol if you want, do maybe another for diesel, and be able to transport by pipeline, because it's very cheap. That way you'll be able to bring down. And I argue that if at a time there was no technology, in 1968, Tazama was commissioned after 1 year, 6 months. It took 18 months. At a time there was no enough technology, 18 months, we had the pipeline. What about now? In under 2 years, you can finish a big pipeline project, make it toll, let people pay for it, who are using it, use transportation tariff, it will self-finance. And we bring fuel in the country, which even the DRC can come and also take, because they are the ones who are suffering a lot, because they have to pass through Zambia, go to Dar es Salaam, pass through Zambia, go to Beira, and also now they have been caught up with this issue in Zimbabwe. They cannot allow to pass also in Zimbabwe, because $24,000 is a lot of money on one transport.
Zimbabwe is asking for a deposit of, is it $24,000 from transporters?
Anything from 22 to 30,000, depending on the truck size. It's colossal sum of money. You see, if it is a one-off, you might say, okay, I imported a weight, it will take me 1 week to get my refund. But here I am as a transporter. I have 500 trucks, I have 200 trucks. They are constantly on the road. So if I have 10 transiting through Zimbabwe, it means I must pay $24,000. But next week, I have more trucks that are going through. So I have no chance to call back this money in form of reinvestment, because next week I'm making other payments. So ultimately, I will have a certain portion of money that is constantly trapped, locked into that corridor. Refundable? Yes, it is refundable. But because it's repeat, every week, every other day, my trucks are passing, so there will be so much money which will be locked within Zimbabwe. And because
why has Zimbabwe done that? Well, did you get the justification?
The issue is they're not doing fuel marking. They're not doing fuel marking, so a lot of fuel get diverted into the local market. They will make declaration that it is going to DRC, it is going to Zambia, so they don't pay all these massive taxes, and the fuel ends up being diverted in the local economy.
Oh, I see. So Zimbabwe says pay a deposit, and on your exit,
then we refund you. Now the issue is, when do I get my refund, and how do I pay you? Because I cannot give my transporters $24,000 in their pockets.
No.
How do I make the payments, and how do I claim back this money?
Yes.
And I've got so many trucks every day, every other week that are constantly there. So you'll have up maybe $200 million, which
and
is
also,
locked within that.
VAT refunds to the mines.
They take long.
Yeah, they can owe you many years.
Yeah, it's a refund issue. And how many trucks for Zambia, for DRC, that transit Zimbabwe per month? How much does that translate to if we use 24,000 as an average? You will find that maybe it's $200 million, which has to sit, maybe that's an exaggeration, maybe more than $100 million. It's possible, because there are thousands of tankers that are passing virtually every other day through these corridors. So now you have to start using a small border in Chanida, and you're creating congestion there. I'm not sure if that road has also been tarred, and these bottlenecks, but the major issue Zimbabwe is trying to solve is the leakages in its own market, because they have not been able to implement fuel marking program.
Okay. Dr. Chikwanda, we can discuss this sector for a long time. I'm glad that you came and you've educated all of us about the sector. The facts and details you've given, I think, will help policy. And from what you have stated, we seem to have a good law. We seem to have some good policies. But the back part of it is implementation.
And the explanation to the people.
And, of course, the explanation
in a language that people understand.
Yeah. So I'd like to thank you for coming. What would be your last word? It appears we will have load shedding is still with us, and high prices of fuel is still with us.
We will get out of the crisis. It is very painful. I've also suffered. I felt it, and I feel it other people. But we have gone through this crisis before as a country, and we must not forget that at one time we were blocked out of Southern Rhodesia.
Yeah.
Again, we could not bring fuel in the country. During the UDI times, we were a lot younger at that time, fuel was being airlifted and brought into Zambia. Now, how many liters is that? Can you imagine the level of crisis that we have had? So we have had this crisis before. This is a wake-up call. It's in nature also teaching us major lessons that can you exploit the sunshine economy? Can you diversify? Can you work together as a country? And also it is birthing a new industry, a new economy. Believe me, you people are making a lot of money. I even wish I can say, solar imports in Zambia to be done by Zambians. Because for the next few years, this is where money will be coming from.
There seems to be an issue on the solar panels, the inverters and batteries. There seems to be no standards and no standard certification. Some people have been complaining on, as usual. There'll be genuine products and some will bring in products that are not genuine during a crisis like this. I hope that ZABs and other industry players must ensure that the quality is not compromised.
Yeah, it's a standard. There is no compulsory standards around this. There is the compulsory standards body, agents. There is no standard. ZABS, Zambia Bureau of Standards, they have a standard, but it's not compulsory. That's where the issue is. Okay. It's not compulsory. So you cannot prosecute anybody. And this is not the only challenge we are facing, because we have all conduits, electrical cables, the sockets, they have no standards. That's why we need to invest heavily in improving standards around our electrical appliances. A lot of electrical appliances, there is no compulsory standards on them.
I bought some, jump cables in a reputable outlet, and they can't pass electricity.
Yeah.
And we've seen houses burn.
Yes,
because someone put what they thought were copper wires,
when
in fact they were not copper wires.
They were not. We have a lot of challenges around that. We need to make sure that, we have fake products.
Yes.
People are made high-end. Some things are made for, it's very unfortunate, but we need to create standards and the enforcement, because that's another thing. You can have standards, but you have a compliance issue. We have a number of them, but it's a compliance. And it's not just around that, even around the engine oils. When I'm going through these auto shops at certain filling stations, I find the recipes for engine oil, which are meant for vehicles in the 1970s, early 1960s, early 1980s. And we don't have those vehicles. So meaning, what is this oil doing? Because in my modern day vehicle, this oil cannot give me the protection. But again, it's because we don't have a compulsory standard. So we need to ensure that we enforce standards that will compel people to adhere, and also the compliance and the monitoring aspect of it. Just like also on the fuel itself, we can be saying we are selling low sulfur fuel, diesel, at 50 ppm. But if I brought here 100 ppm, how are you going to know? How is going to know? And it is cheaper. So I can maximize on the profit by doing that. I can bring in already fuel that is already pre-branded, do we have the mechanism to know that this fuel that has come is already pre-branded because someone is trying to maximize the money? So it's the quality controls, the enforcement of the standards. We need to continuously improve upon those things. Yeah, and in this modern era, we cannot. We should be knowing how much fuel we have in the country at a touch of a button, how much is in each town, how much in each province. At the moment, we are using manual methodologies, depending on you, oil marketing company, to tell me how much fuel you sold so that I can send you a bill on how much strategic fuel fund was supposed to pay, how much money was supposed to pay to the treasury. Now, how many can make correct honest declaration? So you find also the industry is underperforming in terms of revenue contribution because the sector has not been digitized so that we improve transparency and reporting. All these things will have to do.
The fuel marking didn't help?
The fuel marking, it helped big time because the country was losing about $200 million in false declarations. And what it has done is those people that were making false declarations stopped because they knew that they'll get caught and they'll be prosecuted, not just given an administrative penalty. There is now prosecution. So that introduced fear. That's why we saw an upswing of the volume, which did not correspond with a growth in the economy. It is because correct declarations started being made. But there are certain fees that you pay that are based on making your own declaration of how much fuel I have sold, not how much I have brought from Tazama into my depot or how much I've imported in my country, but how much I have sold through my filling station. I have to make that declaration to you. Then you say, okay, now based on this that you have told me, you owe me so much.
So there's still cheating on some
you
aspects
cannot take
like
it
that.
out. It's very much possible.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I was hosting Dr. Johnstone Chikwanda. He served, on the board as chairperson for Indeni Petroleum Refinery and Rural Electrification Authority. He has also served, on the Energy Regulation Board, and he has also served on the South African Institute of Tribology SAIT in Johannesburg, South Africa. He was also, a senior expert in the technical services at SASOL OIL, the energy giant in South Africa. He's a regular columnist. You probably read most of his articles. He's authored many energy industry-related articles. He's also, been featured not just on the Conversation podcast, but on credible media from BBC, to China, to SABC, to others. And today we're discussing the energy sector, and we segmented it, both the electricity sector and the fuel sector. And I hope you've learned a lot from what was given today. It can be done. Something better can be done. We've been independent at over 60 years. So until we have another special guest, God bless you. God bless our country. Shalom, shalom.